on the 28th of January 2021. Callum, are we recording? Could you please do the following, which is please ensure that any mobile devices or mobile phones are switched off. If you're not speaking or being asked to speak, please mute your microphones. If you do not mute your microphone, it will be muted for you. Please don't interject or interrupt unless you're asked to speak. To assist people viewing the meeting, could everybody turn off their cameras and only turn them on when speaking, and also introduce yourselves when you speak. To ensure that the meeting runs smoothly, members wishing to speak, please use their hands up facility whenever possible. Please note that the meeting is currently being webcast live. Let me introduce the executive. I'm the leader of the council, John Halsall. John Kaiser is the deputy leader and executive member for finance and housing. Harry Bath is the executive member for the environment and leisure. Ulla Corinne Clark is the executive member for children's services. Charlotte Haytham Taylor is the executive member for regeneration. Pauline Jorgensen is the executive member for highways and transport. Charles Margetts is the executive member for health, wellbeing and adult services. Stuart Monroe is the executive member for business and economic development. Gregor Murray is the executive member for resident services, communications and emissions. And Wayne Smith is the executive member for planning and enforcement. In addition to the executive at this meeting is supported by Susan Parsonage, who's the chief executive, Andrew Moulton, who's the assistant director for democratic services, and Anne Hunter, who's the manager of democratic services. I have not received any apologies for the meeting. Let me just carry on with the meeting and make just a few preliminary remarks. We had a milestone this week where deaths within the UK for those who have been diagnosed with COVID within 21 days have risen to above 100,000. Please join me in a minute's silence for those who have died during this dreadful pandemic in the UK, Wokingham, and the hundreds of thousands of people who've died around the world. Thank you. The weekly rate to 22nd of January in Wokingham is 266.5 today, which is well below the peak of 606 on the 4th of January, but still compares very badly to below 5 in August. Sadly, deaths and hospitalizations will continue to rise for some time. We can only reduce this significantly if all our residents take full advantage of the lockdown to minimise social contact. Minimisation means only absolutely necessary social contact. If we do, coupled with the rollout of the vaccine, we could look forward to returning to normal around about Easter. I would like to thank again all those who have played a part in helping those who have suffered not just the effect of the virus itself, but all the problems which have accompanied it. This includes all carers, doctors, health staff, social care staff, health, police, fire, rescue, ambulance, teachers, school staff, charities, volunteers. In short, everybody who has stepped up to the plate and made it possible for life to continue during these appalling times. So to all of you, a very big thank you. The golden thread within this borough is the council. This administration has sought to knit all its institutions together, including the health, the voluntary sector and the blue light services, which has served us well in this emergency. Our GPs have told us the provision for mental health is much needed. We have appointed Oxfordshire Mind, and the pilot for the next 18 months is generously be funded by Tatiana and Andre Borodin of Park Place, to whom I'm extremely grateful. Coronavirus has now been with us for a long time. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel, with a vaccine developed here in the UK in record time, thanks to our brilliant scientists. We in WBC are navigating with a steady hand through the emergency, changing the way we work, supporting all our residents and ensuring that services run as normally as possible. Whilst this has been expensive financially, it has been possible in the short term. Much of that which has been done during the height of the crisis, we shall need to do for some time together with all the new requirements. The biggest and most important of which is the rollout of the vaccination across the borough, at the same time ensuring continuity in all our services. I can only express my huge admiration for the doctors and staff in Woking Borough. They have been at the forefront of vaccination delivery in the country. Your doctors are vaccinating almost as soon as they receive deliveries. This executive tonight is to approve an additional 1.2 million to be made available during this financial year. This investment is only possible because of the well-run and excellent control this Conservative administration has exerted over the council finances for many years. These funds will be made available not only to help the rollout of the vaccination programme, but to support a boost to our anti-fly tipping initiative, assisting preschools, keeping the homeless and rough sleepers off the streets, and supporting charities with whom, along with the preschools, are very much part of the vital support structure of our community. Tonight, you will hear my executive talk about how this money will be channeled to the areas needed in the community, how it is designed to help get the borough back on its feet, repair the damage done during the past 10 months, and ensure those things which have been on hold during the pandemic can start to fully function again as quickly as possible. This Conservative Control Council will not be found wanting to support residents, be it child hunger, poverty, homelessness, or any other need. Thank you. And now to the meeting. I have 3 sets of minutes from 3 executive meetings which have been in the recent past. Those on the 26th of November 2020, the extraordinary executive meetings held on the 2nd of December and the 17th of December. Does anybody have any comments on any of those minutes? Could I take it? Well, I think we should vote them. Could the members of the executive vote and approve the minutes, and can somebody second them, please?
I'm happy to second them, John.
Lovely, thank you, Gregor. That's carried, thank you. Do I have any declarations of interest? No, thank you. Now follows public question time. Helen Palmer. Helen Palmer, we have got Helen Palmer here.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. If you could put your camera on.
To see me as well, okay.
That'd be very nice.
Good luck. Hang on. Oh, there I am. Yes, good, lovely.
I can just HP, but only carry on. I'll answer your question, Helen.
Okay, this is my question. In the topic paper Local Green Space, January 2020, prepared by council officers to accompany the draft local plan update consultation, the site LGSO9, site name land between Thames Valley Business Park and Napier Road, known locally as Kennet Mouth, is recommended not to be designated as local green space. In justification for this recommendation, the following statement is made. The presence of overhead electricity cables and pylons has led to some visual intrusion in the open landscape, which is not considered to be local in character, and therefore does not warrant further consideration as a local green space designation. Does the member agree that, as the photographs I have provided to you show, any visual intrusion is insignificant and is not a sufficient reason to refuse the designation of local green space? Personally, walking in this pleasant area, I never notice the cables. What I notice is trees, bushes, flowers, grasses, the river, waterfowl, other birds, insects, fungi, lichen, people on the water and people on the land, dogs, boats, fresh air and the weather. It is both restful and interesting. Will the council ask the officers to strike out this statement on the basis of its lack of accuracy?
Evening again, Helen. It's hello, Wayne Smith.
Oh, hello. I can see
hello.
Hello.
Yes, as mentioned previously, the consultation on the draft plan undertaken earlier this year provided an opportunity for everyone to express their views, including identifying things that could be improved. The draft plan considered only a handful of areas that were put forward at the time. As a further step in the process, we invited the town and parish councils, together with other community groups and organisations last year, to identify other areas of green spaces that they would considered important to their community. As a result of that, we received suggestions for a further 100 additional local green spaces. Different views have been put forward to extend the area that might merit designation, as well as differing reasons. In addition to the original promotion you refer to as the land between Thames Valley Business Park and Napier Road, a wider area has now been promoted and encompasses the larger area of open green space at the Thames Valley Park. The promotion includes further supporting information to explain its suitability for designation. As you're aware, it would be not appropriate for me to comment on the merits of an individual proposal at this time. However, I can assure you that the view of all respondents, even where the information is provided in a different format, i.e. photographs, as you mentioned earlier, will be considered as a way forward and how we make our assessment. Where necessary and justified, our proposals will be amended and recommendations on the merits of the area across the borough will be reported back to Executive as part of a future report on the local plan. As an assessment of each promoted area of green space, this will be documented in a future update to the topic paper. The document will be available to view and comment as part of the future consultation on the local plan later this year. I would estimate that should be in around the summer. I hope that helps. Sorry.
Do you have a supplementary, Helen?
Oh, yes, I do, actually. I understand that, but in order, in the meanwhile, to remove doubt, would Councillor Smith ask the planning officers to issue a revision of the topic paper on local green space that corrects the errors highlighted by SAW to avoid the possibility that it remains on file, with the potential to mislead future consideration of this area by councillors?
I think what you need to consider, and don't take this as me being blunt, but what you've actually, whoever put forward the first proposal, you put forward a very small area. And the way I could describe it, it was almost the landing base for the MRT. What has now been put forward is a much stronger assessment, and it carries much more weight. And you know, as I said, it would be inappropriate for me to tell you whether that is going to go forward or not. But what I would say is it's a much stronger paper than what you put forward originally, because I think what you were trying to do on your original piece was trying to almost avoid the MRT happening, but not encompassing the whole river bank, which would have been a far better way of doing things.
All right.
I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to.
Yes, it does. Yes,
I'm trying to lead you to the.
Yeah.
Not lead you along the river path.
Thank you. Yes, yes.
Thank you very much, Helen, for your question.
Thank you.
Morag Malvern.
Hello. I've got my question.
Helen, could you now turn your camera off? Morag, I can't see you.
Can you see me?
Nope.
Oh, well, I thought I'd got my camera on.
You have, we can see you.
Oh, that's fine. Shall I carry on with my question?
Yes, please.
It's thank you. How is the Borough Council planning to fully inform all EU residents here in a timely way of their rights to vote and to stand as candidates in local elections?
John Kaiser? I don't know what's happened there, Morag, but I'll take the question.
John, I'm sorry about this.
There you go.
Okay. Basically, Morag, sorry, I'm having a real problem. I'm losing.
I'll take the question, Morag. The Borough Council continues to monitor any changes to the voting franchise and makes the latest information available on its website for both voters and potential candidates. The current position is as follows. Until domestic law is changed, EU citizens will retain their voting rights in local elections in England. This was confirmed by the government in advance of the May 2020 elections that had been due to take place. The rights of EU citizens to vote and stand in local elections will not immediately change on exit from the EU. This remains the case for the local elections delayed from May 2020 to May 2021, as noted in a written statement from the government. Quote, the May local elections were postponed until 2021 due to COVID-19. In that context, the UK government can confirm that resident EU citizens will remain able to vote and stand in rescheduled May 2021 local elections in England, including the London Assembly elections, and the May 2021 Police and Commissioner elections in England and Wales. Those elected to office will be able to serve their full term, and this will also apply to those elected before 2021. The UK government has wanted to make reciprocal voting rights part of the negotiations for the UK's exit from the EU. However, they did not form part of the negotiations. Instead, the UK government is negotiating reciprocal voting rights with individual EU countries. Do you have a supplementary, Morag?
I do, yes, please. I'm just keen to establish that the way that you've suggested will actually reach all the EU residents here, not all of whom have the sort of IT capability, and I'm not expert in that by any means, but I do just worry that people might fall through the net. So can you reassure me that you will make every effort to reach all EU citizens, even if they're not already on the electoral roll, as some of them might not be, in the right language if need be? And how do we get around the problem of not everybody having access to a website? Perhaps it's because they don't have top-notch broadband. There's always that. Thank you.
We do our very best to ensure that all residents in the borough, whatever their provenance, who are entitled to vote are on the electoral roll, and we will continue to do so. Thank you, Morag.
Thank you.
Philip Meadowcraft, for me, Philip.
Good evening, Councillor Halsall and members of the Executive. Did the breaches of the Borough Constitution I identified at the January 11th Standards meeting result from unintended or mistaken conduct, or were they indicative of a wider disregard of the stipulations of the Borough's Constitution?
Philip, as always a pleasure to see you, always a pleasure. As you are aware, I provided a statement last week to full council in which I set out the council's position and apologised for what was an honest mistake. Once again, I would like to thank you for raising this important issue. At the Standards Committee meeting, you inquired whether the composition of its members were in conformance with 9.11 of the Constitution. You were correct. There was an inconsistency between the decisions made by full council and this clause. The composition of the committee was lawful. The committee was lawfully established, and its decisions and any decisions of a subcommittee of the committee are lawful. It was lawful for the council to change it in the way that it did. However, genuinely it was a surprise that the committee had been so constituted for 21 months, spanning 2 annual council meetings. Neither had any member of the committee, nor officers, nor members, nor the press raised this issue previously. If there is a fault, it is jointly and several of all. Had I been aware of this clause, I would not have proposed our appointments. Indeed, immediately on being aware, I corrected the membership to the rule. I apologise to members and officers for the inconsistency, and again, thank you for raising it. The Chief Executive has assured members that although the inconsistency existed, the appointments were made by full council and therefore were constitutional. The Chief Executive has also pointed out that the composition and operation of the Standards Board are not statutory but local preference. Do you have a question, supplementary?
Indeed I do, Councillor Halsall. You've been breaching 3 requirements of the Constitution at 911A since May 2019, when you became leader of the council. You've repeatedly made the excuse that this was an honest and genuine mistake, which nobody recognised until I raised it. Your honest and genuine plea is destroyed by the fact that you chose to pack the Standards Committee with 3 very senior members of the Executive, yourself, the Deputy Leader and the Executive Member for Planning. Quite a formidable trio, I think. This can only be regarded as your determination to bulldoze your authority and control in the Standards Committee to ensure your decisions would always be in favour of the ruling group of the majority party. Such hubris and arrogance prompts this supplementary question. Do you agree with me, please, that your conduct on this issue requires you to consider your position as leader of the council, because what you have done has fatally undermined the respect and authority of your leadership and the overdue need for our council to be seen to be conducted in a lawful manner at all times?
No, I don't, Philip, for the reasons I've given. But thank you very much for your question. And now I come to Danny Esposito. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. Are you here? Yes, you are.
Can you hear me?
I can. I can't see you.
Excellent.
Can I see you?
The camera might take us a minute or so to warm up. Okay, here's my question.
I can see you as well now.
We're back on. Oh, great. We're back on Riverside in terms of our topic. So in the topic paper, local green space, accompanying the draft local plan update, on the site referred to as land between Thames Valley Business Park and Napier Road, it is stated that the site is not considered to be of particular local significance. Successive attempts to build roads over this land adjacent to the River Thames have been frustrated by residents who myself, having recently taken up wild swimming in the area, recognise the value of this space. In the 1980s, boot the route, and in response to the MRT proposals, SAW was formed. Thousands of people signed petitions objecting to the construction of the MRT. A public meeting was attended by hundreds of people who voted against the road in an exit poll by a majority of 90%. Early Town Council, the Whitegate Residents Association, ASA, and the Berkshire, Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire Wildlife Trust also all submitted objections. It was commented that on that there was a number of objections received to these plans, which was actually unprecedented. So at the public consultations that were at the time, and the overwhelming majority of the comments were against the MRT. So the description in the topic paper, the site is not considered to be of particular local significance, is incorrect. So I asked the officers to substitute a statement that actually does reflect the local significance.
Sorry, you disappeared, Danny. We've got the question though. Will they?
Did you not hear the end of the question?
I've got it.
We've got the question.
Yeah, I've got the question. Thank you, Danny.
Got it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening. As previously mentioned, the draft local plan consultation undertaken earlier last year provided an opportunity for everyone to express their views on what we got right, what we didn't get right, and things that we could improve on. Through the consultation, various views were expressed regarding the assessment of areas promoted for consideration as local green spaces. We have received a significant number of additional promotions, as I mentioned earlier to Helen, of over 100. With regard to the Kennet Mouth area, some responses provided additional information and some promoted and now have promoted a much wider area which incorporates the river frontage and the area north of Thames Valley Park. These will be considered as we move forward in updating our assessments and producing the next version of the local plan for consultation later this year. As previously mentioned, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on the merits of any additional proposal outside of the formal process, but I can assure you, as I did Helen in my explanation earlier, that all respondents will be considered and the information taken into consideration. All the information will be taken into consideration as we form our views.
Do you have a supplementary, Danny? You disappeared again. Danny?
Yes, I do. Here I am. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can see, I hear you and see you.
Hello?
Lovely.
I can hear you.
And can you hear me as well?
Yes, carry on.
Excellent. Okay, so thank you for the explaining again about the proposal of the larger area from Sonic to Kennet Mouth, which creates this stronger case. Would you personally support protection within the planning framework for the area proposed by Early Environmental Group that covers the existing and much valued green space Sonning to Kennet Mouth? This joining with the riverside with the Reading boundaries creates a 3-mile green stretch that is so important for people and wildlife alike. If the councillor feels that it would be inappropriate to reveal his position on the subject at the moment, they will do so.
I don't know if you reviewed my credentials on the MRT, Danny, and I think if you were to go back and look at the planning committee meetings, I led the march on not allowing the MRT. So I think that says a huge amount of my personal view, but I obviously can't say one way or the other, but I think I'll give you a good lead into where I stand.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that the connection was poor, Danny, but I hope that you got what you wanted. That ends public questions. And if I can come to the next part of the agenda, which is members' questions. Unfortunately, we have a huge agenda tonight. It's 300 pages, and there was quite a lot of questions submitted after the event, after the agenda was published. So you really got a choice as to what you do. If you wish to have supplementaries to everyone, then we won't get through all the members' questions. So, Rochelle, you've got the real person today.
Okay. Yeah, I look forward to having a real answer from Pauline as opposed to some other answers I've received in the past. Why was the need for consultation on the traffic regulation audit for Woodward Close right turn prohibition ignored for several years and only done less than 2 weeks before it was due to be implemented, and completely confused residents?
Hi, Rochelle. Thank you for your question. Yes, I know residents were confused. I was involved in the middle of that as well. The council consulted on...
Pauline, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me? I'm here. Can you hear me? Hello?
Barely.
We can hear you.
I can hear you perfectly, Pauline.
Okay.
Tell you what, Pauline, you can give me your answer written, and I will give you a quick supplementary, which you can also give me as a written answer.
Let me give you them both verbally, but I'll answer them both at the same time.
Rochelle, ask your supplementary, and Pauline will do.
I'll do both.
It's not working, Pauline. I can't hear a thing you're saying.
I think it's your end, Rochelle. Just answer the question, Rochelle. I'll give you a written answer, and I'll also give a verbal answer. You can watch the tape later. Okay?
For the record, I'm only upstairs in the same house. So
I can hear absolutely nothing, Pauline.
Can you hear me?
Imogen, can you hear her?
I can hear her just fine.
I can't hear her because you've taken over the
Rochelle,
Wi-Fi.
just speak, Rochelle.
Yeah, carry on.
Okay. Okay. My supplementary question, since I will get the answer in writing, is that this left turn only is required because of the new roundabout on Woodward Close, and I've been waiting for the not traffic survey, but traffic modeling on this now for 3 months and still haven't gotten it. And this is all due to the Tory local plan update, which is adding 350 houses, quadrupling the number of cars coming through the roundabout now. So can I please have the traffic modeling?
So can I give you a verbal answer to begin with? So the first thing is the council did consult on alternative routes for the North Woking Distributor Road in September.
It's not the North Woking Distributor Road, it's the Winnish Relief Road.
In September and October 2013, and received 1,500 responses. This was one of the council's largest ever consultation responses, and there was clear public preference for the alignment currently under construction, which includes a permanent no right turn arrangement to and from Woodward Close. Following further technical studies, the recommended route was agreed to the executive in September 2015. A request to advertise the permanent TRO was made to the council in October 20, and given the passage of time since the scheme was last consulted upon, officers decided that as part of the statutory consultation, it was appropriate to advertise the order and inform residents likely to be affected by the banned turns again. The statutory consultation ran until the 14th of January 2021, and subject to approval will enable the restriction to be put in place prior to the scheme opening in July 2021. In December 2020, which I think caused part of the problem, a temporary TRO was separately granted by the council to ensure safety of road users and construction workers, whilst a temporary diversion of traffic was put in place in order to enable connecting construction work for the NWDR and the A329 Reading Road. And I think many people got the temporary TRO, understandably, I'm not criticising them, confused with the permanent TRO, and thought that basically the original temporary TRO was going to be the permanent one. It was very confusing. It was regrettable that we put both out at the same time. It was different arms of the same organisation, and I think it probably didn't help the confusion. As far as your question about traffic modelling is concerned, I'm afraid I'm going to duck that one. That's an answer for a question for planning, who approved the access to that you're talking about, not for highways. But maybe
okay, yeah, but it's highways is the one who actually did the modeling, and I wanted to see the modeling, please.
Thank
Could
you,
they deliver
Rochelle.
it? Could they send it to me? Or are you just going to ignore it? Okay,
I'm
thank
going to
you.
ignore it. You've not asked me for it before.
Thank you, Rochelle.
I asked you
Rachel.
for it in September.
Rachel.
No.
Good evening. Even before the coronavirus pandemic, the hidden cost of sending children to school was a significant source of strain for many Wokingham families. Parents on lower incomes struggled to give their children the expensive blazers, jumpers with logos, sport kit with logos, and dress shoes which schools require. While one local supermarket could provide a full generic school uniform for £4.50 last September, I don't know if you can see that little catalogue there, parents at some of our schools are paying multiple times that amount for just one item of uniform because it has a colour and logo which is unique to that school. Parents may be lucky enough to pick up some second-hand items in the right size, but that is less likely for shoes or reliable IT equipment, let alone school trips. The pandemic is causing financial hardship to an increasing number of families, and the effects may last for years. What action will the council be taking to ensure maintained at other local schools, to ensure that uniforms and other school costs are kept genuinely affordable for parents?
Thank you for your question, Rachel. It's the governing body of a school that sets the uniform policy and where to source the uniform. And the cost and the value should always be considered, and the council is always reminding the schools about this. The uniforms should also be easily available to buy, preferably from a local supermarket, so nobody has to travel anywhere. Any savings negotiated by the school should be passed on to the parents. And, we ask the schools regularly to remind the parents that if they do have a problem, they will get help from the schools. On our website, you may have seen the parents' guides for starting primary, junior and secondary schools on our website, where we actually say that we don't have any scheme, so they will have to turn to the school. And I know many schools have a selection of used uniforms, so there is a possibility of going down that way for them.
Okay.
Do you have a supplementary there?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Ulla Karin. I agree that the governing body is responsible for setting the uniform policy. And I'm really pleased to say that you are in favour of those governing bodies setting a uniform policy, which means that people can buy uniform from supermarkets. Unfortunately, I do know from talking to local parents that many of them are still struggling because there are still a lot of very unique branded items which are very expensive. The Children's Society is calling for councils and for schools to look at needlessly high uniform costs, and other councils around the UK are actually supporting and influencing schools to look at what they can do to tackle this. So, for example, to give one very quick example, allowing children to wear items in standard colours which can be bought from a supermarket with sew on school logos.
We're working the question
there is indeed. We're working commit to look urgently at what we can do to ensure that uniforms and other school costs for the state schools in our area are as affordable as possible, and to use the COVID winter grant scheme where this is needed to ensure that all children have the essential tools and supplies for learning in these difficult times.
Well, the COVID winter grant scheme is meant to be used for food and for fuel. It can't be used for buying clothes or shoes. But as I said, it is the governing body of each school that makes these decisions. So I would suggest that parents get together and they speak to the governing body. Nobody should have to suffer because they have to buy a school uniform.
Okay, thank you very much, Ulla Karin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Ulla Karin. Michael Furniture, please. And Stuart Monroe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, my question is to Stuart Munro. Has Wokingham Borough Council done all it could to support businesses during the pandemic effect of COVID-19 and the lockdowns?
Thank you very much for your question, Michael. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the devastating impact that this pandemic has had on our national economy, including very many of our local businesses who have my heartfelt sympathy at this extremely challenging time. In these unprecedented circumstances, I believe that the council has really gone the extra mile to try and support businesses as much as possible in a myriad of different ways. In terms of direct financial support, the council has to date disbursed around 42.5 million of grants and are currently administering 8 separate grant streams. In the fortnight up to the 22nd of January alone, we've paid out a further 365 grants totaling 2.5 million, with a further 380 applications in the process of being assessed. I recognise the number of grants can be confusing, and so I've asked that the website and application process is made as simple as possible for businesses. That means that if a business is not eligible for a mandatory grant, it will automatically be considered for a discretionary grant. And if it's still not eligible, details will be passed through to our economic development team to contact the business direct to understand their situation and what other support could be offered, perhaps through the Berkshire Business Growth Hub or similar. I've also been keen to ensure that we publicise the grants as much as possible and are also proactive in contacting business who may be eligible and encouraging them to apply. However, there are no doubt some businesses who may not be aware or for whom the current grants aren't suitable, and I would urge them to check the grants page on our website and get in touch with our economic development team or at the Growth Hub to discuss that situation. The extensive survey of businesses was also carried out to better understand the need and the issues faced, especially with regard to our small businesses, which are the mainstay of our local economy. Issues raised were followed up with one-to-one conversations and additional advice and support wherever possible. This has included close links with the signposting business of the Growth Hub for specialist advice and advice to a range of other national financial help packages. A follow-up survey will hopefully go out in the next couple of weeks to ensure that we have an accurate, up-to-date picture. With changing restrictions across different tiers and timescales, the council has also sought to assist businesses to deal with the complexity of regulation so they can trade safely and give confidence to their clients and customers. The work of the PPP, the Public Protection Partnership, has been supplemented by our deployment of COVID support marshals to assist not only with the compliance, but also signpost to further advice and provide a reassuring presence to encourage customers back into our main town centres when it's appropriate to do so. Indeed, ensuring our town centres could reopen safely has been a major focus of our efforts to support as conducive a business environment as possible, whilst ensuring that this can be done safely. With the Christmas period being particularly important to many small traders, I'm also really pleased that we created the virtual Christmas market, which ran for 38 days. This was a huge success and provided a platform for traders to continue to trade and their customers to access some Christmas cheer in tough times. Feedback from both the stall holders and customers has been overwhelmingly positive, so much that we are looking at options of running similar event over the Easter period and also for building our shop local message used throughout the pandemic. Of course, the current national lockdown has further challenged our business community, as well as continuing to distribute grants as widely as quickly as we can, need to keep working on identifying and targeting where support, monetary or otherwise, is most needed. We have built a strong partnership with business representatives from Woking, Woodley, Twyford, etc., and who have been very effective in spreading communications and providing important feedback. In addition, the newly refocused Woking Business Task Force has brought together representatives from across the business community to help shape and monitor our response and recovery plans and actions. With infection rates in Woking starting to fall and vaccination numbers increasing, we can hopefully see the light at the end of the tunnel and can begin to look forward to recovery. However, our hard-working businesses still need and deserve all the help we can give them, and I can assure you we will continue to do what we can to support them. Do you have a supplementary one?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Thank you very much for that answer detailing the excellent response that's been given to businesses. Please, can you just confirm to me that Woking Borough Council is continuing to give support to businesses?
We are, and we're putting more staff in, and hopefully we'll get a much closer relationship with these businesses. And also, we've got a task and recovery group, which is chaired by a lot of local businesses. So we're doing, I think, a pretty good job with what we've got.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
John, are you muted?
Thank you very much for that. So we come to Caroline Smith. Caroline Smith.
Hello, good evening. I'm a member of Early Town Council Planning Committee, and we are quite often receiving complaints from residents. They have not been informed by Woking Borough Development Control about any planning applications near to their property. This matter has been ongoing for some time. The chair of Early Town Planning Committee has written the past on this matter. It is still happening. Please can the executive member look into this matter and resolve it for all our residents so they are informed and therefore able to raise their concerns on a planning application affecting them. Thank you.
Wayne.
Yeah, sorry. Evening, Caroline.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'll just give you a preamble and then I'll explain where we are as information that I've got within the last few hours. Government regulations set out the council's requirements for public consultation when a planning application is received and states the council must either place a site notice on either the application site or write to adjoining owners or occupiers. The council consults in line with the regulations and its own statement of community involvement, which is available on the council's website. Residents are provided with 21 days for comments. We are working on a new information for neighbours guide because there's been a lot of changes, especially around certificate of lawfulnesses, prior approval and PD rights. And we're currently working on that. And then once that's available, that will be going out to all towns and parishes and members, and it will be updated on our website. In addition, while site notices are only required by law for major applications of development, a number of small applications, the council sends out an applicant and a site notice and requests that these displayed, but that is voluntary and it cannot insist on this. Notification is also sent to ward members and the relevant town and parish council, as you know, and all relevant documentation is displayed on the council's website. The council also publishes an updated list of applications which are validated every week and is on our website. Even where a resident has not been directly consulted by the council upon an application, they are able to respond and update their comments on our website and determine the application. Now, we sent out last year over 10,000 neighbour notifications, and in my conversations with officers today, they have spoken to Royal Mail and we're going to do some spot checks, and I've asked them to start in early just to check whether there seems to be an issue with these going out and if we can track them so that we can look at where we think these may be going wrong. A lot of times when we get people saying they haven't had it, it's because they live too far away from the application site. But rest assured, we are looking into this, and if necessary, we produce some necessary videos, etc., so people can understand what is available.
Thank you. I have got a supplementary, but I'll write it to you to save time. Okay. Is that all right?
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you. Imogen.
Hello. Okay, my question is, looking at item 70 on our current agenda we have here, the Treasury Management Report 2020-21, there are some marked differences between this report and what has been approved and recommended to the executive by the Audit Committee. The Audit Committee's report appears in Appendix A. There appears to have been an extra 1.06 million added from commercial properties and £0 added from the town centre regeneration project. These items did not appear on the previous reports and were not part of the review by Audit. As the Audit Committee Constitution has constitutionally has the responsibility for monitoring Treasury management decisions and ensuring compliance with the approved Treasury management strategy. When is this updated report being brought before the Audit Committee for review and approval?
Thank you, Imogen. The report reviewed by the Audit Committee is at Appendix A and has been passed on to the Executive as required in the Constitution to the covering report. Audit Committee is required to review progress against the Treasury management indicators, which they did, and note further information in the receipt. The Executive is required to note the Appendix A, the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report, which was agreed at Audit Committee on the 23rd of November. This states quite clearly in the covering report recommendations, and furthermore is covered in more details in the second paragraph of the Executive Summary. Therefore, the report that the Audit Committee debated and agreed democratically is the one being presented to the Council and does not need to be presented back to the Audit Committee. However, it is certainly prudent to update the Council and residents of the broader position, particularly given the recent media debate around the cost of debt to the local taxpayer of the Council's Treasury portfolio. So wherever the Treasury mid-term report quite rightly demonstrates the level of supported debt that is funded from its regeneration, investment and self-financing scheme, it did not give the wider picture as to how much additional income is generated from its regeneration and investment programme for the Council to be used in support of its revenue budget, allowing it to continue to support the delivery of services and its residents. That is why the covering report contains this information, not to replace or contradict the report agreed at audit, but to provide a more comprehensive, more completedness and transparency for the residents of the borough. I would also like to add that this income stream will not only continue, but will increase as debt is repaid. This enhanced information shows a more rounded position, will however be reported to the future Audit Committee in line with our 6 months reporting. Thank you.
Okay. I have a supplementary. My question is then becomes that it's never appeared in any of the Treasury management reports before, and it suddenly appeared now, and this is after the Audit Committee approved this report. I don't understand why it was not brought to the Audit Committee at that particular time and why it's suddenly been added, because this is something new. So my question then becomes, who has the authority to add this information after the report has been approved by the Audit Committee, because I think there's something very wrong going on here. Thank you.
As I said, that this was to actually add more transparency to the report, and enhance information showing a more rounded position will however be reported to the future audit committees in line with our 6 monthly reporting. I think it's important that whenever
never
we
been
have
in their before. I'm sorry, but it's never been in their report
well,
before, and it's suddenly been added, and that is
okay. The reason it's there is to add to transparency, so people can actually see the transparency of that information. I regret it's never been there before. It should have been. It is there now. Thank you.
Thank you, Imogen. Thank you, John. Lindsay? Lindsay?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, John, for confirming that the town centre regeneration project has provided no money to the council. Thank you. With reference to the revenue budget,
it's a free town. You're getting a free town centre, and as time develops and COVID disappears, it will generate income which will pay for vital services.
I'll probably be long gone by then.
Lindsay,
let's not hope so.
I think it's at least 15, if not 20 years ahead, but never mind. With reference to the revenue budget monitoring report, this is to you, John Kaiser. With reference to the revenue budget monitoring report, can you advise whether there is any allowance with either the children's services budget or within the government funds to WBC for COVID-19 to cover additional facilities for IT, iPads or laptops for our local children who do not have these facilities and are therefore not able to learn effectively from home, and whether Woking Borough Council has provided any such facilities? Thank you.
Lindsay, my job is Lindsay. My job as finance, as a member for finance, is to put the budgets together. I'm not responsible for the content, so I'll make way for Ula Corinne, who is responsible for children's services. Ula Corinne.
Sorry, John.
Yes, my job is to put the budgets together. It isn't the content's a responsibility of the executive members for the various areas. So I'll make way for Ula Corinne, who will answer this question for you.
Thank you, John. When the pandemic first started and during the first lockdown, the government announced the Get Help with Technology scheme. And through that, the Department for Education allocated about 700 laptops to Wokingham schools, and most of these have now been delivered. There is an estimated shortfall of about 500, but on the 12th of January, the government announced that nationwide a further 300,000 laptops were going to be distributed. So we are hoping that we will fill this gap. We are also working with the voluntary and community sector to get recycled IT equipment. Sorry. In addition to that, since March 2020, 235 laptops have been provided to children with, and 50 to children in care or care leavers who are leaving education. And that is the council's own laptop scheme, which has been going for some time. Did you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Corinne. There was a slight clicking of when you spoke. You said some numbers. I got 235 and then something else.
50 to children in care and care leavers who are still in education.
Right. Yes, I have a supplementary which I actually provided in advance.
Okay.
There is also a need to ensure that these facilities are able to be connected to schools, i.e. the provision of a laptop on its own may only be half of the answer. Has this been included in the above figures or not? And how many children has the council assisted in this way?
Well, obviously the access is important, otherwise you can't use your laptop. And we are relying on the schools to tell us when somebody needs these. There are, however, a number of mobile providers schools can tap into. And so far it hasn't been an issue. We are using a Department for Education COVID-related scheme to support children with a social work. They can access 4G and they are getting routers from us. But I want to stress that we are relying on the schools to tell us if anything is necessary in that area.
Thank you, Corinne. I'll come back to you on any more details.
Yeah, and also you could help to spread the word that if somebody has any laptops at home they are not using, it would be very useful if they could contact us and we could help to distribute those to the schools.
Certainly we will do so.
Thank you.
I'm terribly sorry, but the next three questions will have to have a written answer because we do have a pressure of business and it should only be 20 minutes and we've gone on for 30 minutes. So I do apologise for that, but I think that was what we have to do.
You could have said that earlier instead of leaving us sitting here.
Right, so moving back to the agenda, John. That's the end of members' questions and public questions. Item 67, page 49, Chief Officer's Report.
Thank you very much. Basically, this is the Chief Financial Officer's report. It's a statutory report he has to provide once a year to lay out where we are with the council, and it covers basically the areas around revenue and capital and any other areas that the council are invested in. And also attached to this is the letter that we've written, which is a response to the consultation. Basically, it's to tell the government how unhappy we are with the settlement we've received. We are still the lowest funded unitary authority in the country. Has there anybody got any questions before I go to the recommendations?
Any questions from members? I notice that our borrowings are still at a level which we predicted, which is a net indebtedness position of peaking at 400 million. Is that likely to be the case, given that we never quite spend our capital budget?
No, the capital budget, John, as you probably know, for operational aspect, for us, operational issues, we never get to spend the whole of the capital budget. Some falls out, some falls in. We have planning issues and all sorts of things. And we normally spend around about 60% of the capital budget. So the borrowing requirement may not be that high when you look at it in light of that, but we do, just in case. In the unlikely event we do ever achieve the whole of the capital budget, we have to include all of the numbers in there.
So what would you anticipate the peak in net indebtedness would be at the end of 22, 31st of March 22?
That's a very difficult thing to say, because it's a fortune. It very much depends on what goes on. I wouldn't want to underestimate and I wouldn't want to overestimate it. So I think the numbers as laid out in the report are the numbers really we should go with.
But if we don't spend our capital budget, then I would guess net indebtedness would not rise beyond 250 million.
Yeah, I guess if you wanted to pluck a number, that's the sort of number that you could apply to it.
Thank you. Any other questions for John from the executive? No, then can I take the recommendation to accept the Chief Financial Officer's report as read in the report, which is the recommendations of note the Chief Financial Officer's report and issues contained within, including the local government finance settlement and the sections on key risks. And they considered those when setting the council tax 21-22 and agreeing the council's medium-term financial plan. To support the council's response to local government finance settlement as set out in Appendix 2 to the board, and support the council's ongoing representations for fairer funding for the residents of Woking Borough Council. Those in favour? Thank you, that's carried then. So moving on, John again, revenue budget monitor report.
Okay, well, the purpose of this report, as it says, is to deliver the council's priorities for the community to ensure that the efficient and effective safe use of resource. The council agrees to set its budget in February preceding the current financial year, and this report seeks to update the executive on the budget position throughout the year and provides an estimate of the outturn position and impact on balances. If I could just refer everybody to page 88, which I think is the important bit of this report. Page 88, let me just get there myself. Okay, as you will see within page 88, there are a number of issues. One is a recommended carried forward, which is a 2.113 million into the financial year 21-22. This was the overspending in not this year, but the previous year. And then we move to recommendation, which is a supplementary estimate. the executive, tonight I'm going to ask you to approve an in-year supplement estimate of £1.2 million for priority COVID related issues to be allocated by the Deputy Chief Executive in consultation with myself. We are currently a critical part of the COVID-19 response, and it is essential we have sufficient resources in place to ensure that the Council is able to continue to play a key role, whether it be through the direct provision or assisting other agencies. The vaccine rollout to our community is of vital importance, and we need to ensure that it is working with the health centre, the immunisation programme is enacted as efficiently as possible. It is also vital importance that we are able to continue to support those in hardship. We've heard about business earlier on, but there's also individuals that are facing problems, as mentioned by the leader in his speech this evening. And we require additional resources, both to enact our hardship schemes speedily and efficiently, and are able to supplement the national schemes where it is necessary. It should also be recognised that the pandemic has generated some unforeseen high-profile service pressures, such as fly tipping, and we therefore need the additional budget to address issues like this that's coming within our community. A supplementary estimate of 1.2 million is therefore requested to fund these high priority activities. We are already seeing stuff coming out of left field, such as domestic abuse, and which is requiring additional support from the council because it's involving children, both smaller children and children who aren't capable of looking after themselves at the moment. So I would urge that you support this document tonight. Ben. Is there any questions?
Ulla Corinne. You're muted, Ulla Corinne.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will support this because, as you know, there is an underspend in children's services this year for the first time ever, I believe. And this is due to us focusing on close control of the spending, as well as sticking to our strategic priorities. However, I want to make the point that these figures were put down before we had the last, I hope it's the last lockdown. And there may be additional costs coming our way because we always have to ensure that we fulfill our statutory duties. And the impact on COVID on families. For example, we need to have more children looked after, we need more family support workers, etc. So I'm very happy with this supplementary budget. And if I may, I'd like to take the opportunity of saying thank you to our teachers and all the staff in our schools who are working almost day and night, teaching at schools, teaching from home. And times are very difficult and they are doing a fantastic job. It's not said often enough, so I do apologize if I take up valuable time, but I think it has to be said. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you, Legrin. Parry.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, thank you, John Kaiser, as well. I'm really grateful for these additional funds that you'll be making available for domestic abuse, as well as for the fly tipping, which is really blighting the borough residents, and so I'm really pleased. This is good news for the residents as well as myself, and I'll be able to hopefully apply these funds to purchase more CCTV cameras, extra signage, and possibly look into the use of community skips. Fly tipping is still blighting our borough residents. This is an illegal activity, and so we are actually adopting a very zero tolerance for fly tipping, and just to warn the culprits that we are committing fly tipping. We're actually making these people pay for fly tipping, and we are watching and we are catching the culprits. So thank you for these additional funds, John.
Stuart.
Yes, thank you, John. As my other colleagues have said, I fully support this. One of the things we've found out talking to businesses that there is a lot of pressure inside families. We mentioned the fly tipping thing. Those of us in the countryside, it's a huge, huge problem. They're just even dumping them in the middle of the roads. I fully support this. Well done. Thank you.
Charles.
Thank you, John. I'm happy to support this. Basically, I think as the representative of the budget that's come under most pressure from COVID, this will help basically in 3 areas. An expansion of track and trace, which is obviously very important. It will support our expansion of the recently launched lateral flow testing program by allowing basically extra centres and extra staff, which boost capacity. Demand's been very good for this so far. Over 1,500 people have booked up this week just for the Wokingham Centre, and it will also support us in our efforts to support the GPs. We're currently helping them with funding, buildings, staff, resources, and supporting them with volunteers. So yes, it's very useful, significant sum of money, and very helpful.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to comment on the executive? Okay, thank you very much.
Do you want me to go to the recommendations, John?
Yep.
Okay, well, the recommendations, which are on page 83, okay, which is basically to note the significant financial impact of COVID-19 crisis as illustrated in the executive summary, to note the overall forecast of the current position of the general fund, revenue, budget, housing revenue account, dedicated school grants as illustrated in the executive summary and the appendices attached to this report, and to note the potential general fund carry forward of the 2.3 million. This is, as I said, last year's overspending the budget as set out in Appendix B to the report, and approve a in-year supplementary estimate for 1.2 million for priority COVID-19 related issues to be allocated by myself and the Deputy Chief Executive, and to approve an in-year supplement, which is an estimate of £16,000 for a review and refresh of the Council's corporate plan.
Those are happy to second that. All those in favour? Please just thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. And then the capital monitoring report, John.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is to ensure that we are basically using our capital effectively and to meet the council's planned investment priorities and delivering value for money to the residents. There are a number of things. If you look, as I said earlier on, we do not normally spend the whole of the capital programme. We spend, and this year has been even less because we actually had to rephase a number of the projects because the operators, the people delivering these projects, actually couldn't manage to do it. So if you read the report, you will find that rephasing in there. But typically, we tend to spend about 60% of our capital programme. But of course, we have to put a full capital programme together, purely and simply because some things drop out, some things drop in. And we do find you can have a situation where you need a road sooner than you expect it, or you need a piece of infrastructure sooner than expected. Typical is Bowhunt School. We delivered Bowhunt School about 18 months early, which was pretty good when you consider how successful that's been. And so the capital programme is very much the council's aspirations with regards to delivering these things within that year. So really, that's more or less all I've got to say about that.
Okay, any questions? I note that the expected capital outturn for this year is about 50%. It's 158 over 321, which is just below 50%.
Yeah.
So that would have a significant impact on our expected end year borrowings.
That's correct, it would.
Any other questions, or can we take the recommendations? You're going to read the recommendations, John?
Yes, let me just go back to the recommendations. I'm sorry.
101.
Okay, right. 101. Okay. If note the capital programme has been reviewed and will continue to be throughout the year in the context of the impact of COVID-19 on the funding sources and service requirements, and any changes will be presented to the executive for approval. 2, approve and note the proposed rephasing of the capital programme following the in-year review and the impact of COVID, as pointed out by the leader. As set out in paragraph 3, there is no financial stroke service impact from reporting of the budget into 2021-22. 3, note the position, the capital programme at the end of quarter 3, as summarised in the report and detailed in Appendix A. Note Appendix C, which highlights the capital performance by key activities, part of the council's, which is part of the council's enhanced financial management focus on the key capital project, monitoring the performance against the budget and impact on funding levels, including borrowings. Agreed that the 6.8 million of ring-fence funding capital provision programme is brought forward to the current year for the acceleration of the delivery of the SCAPE, which is the road infrastructure project, and approve and note the additional 2020-2021 capital programme development project for flats for vulnerable adults at Ryesh Green, Hyde End Road, Spencer's Wood, funded from ring fence funding from the national, which is from the National Health Service, and to approve and note the additional capital budget of 2.756 for Winners Triangle Park and Ride into the capital programme, which is funded by ring fence grants from the LEP and the third-party contributions and S106 contributions, and 8, to approve and note the contractual commitment of the 2021-2022 capital programme budget for Carnival Pool development for the value of £4 million. That's the recommendations, Leader.
I'll second that. All those in favour? So carried unanimously. Thank you. John again, Treasury Management Mid-Year Report.
Okay. I mean, this is basically the effective borrowing and investment to optimise the resource position for the council and provide a strong financial standing. And it's quite a comprehensive report. As you can see, it has an appendix with it, and really, if I could just go straight to the recommendations, unless there's any questions.
Just one question. I noticed that our borrowings, the annual cost of servicing this borrowing that falls to the local taxpayer is £7.52 council tax band property. That is all our borrowings, isn't it?
That is correct, yes.
And I noticed that the net indebtedness of cash balances after cash balances is 83 million at the end of September.
That's correct.
Where does the reference to 670 million come from, which is bandied around a lot?
Well, 670 million is the total amount of money that's required to fund our capital programme. But of course, within that capital programme, there are certain aspects of it that are funded by, will be forward funded by ourselves, because we borrow money on the basis that we're going to get S106 and SIL receipts, which will repay that. We also have our own borrowings into that, which reduces the borrowing significantly, and we also have our own investments. And when you add our own investments and the borrowing that we've got into our the council's borrowing from themselves, when you add all that in, the true external borrowing is significantly less.
So the net indebtedness, as at the end of September,
was £87 million. That's correct.
And what's the assets that it's supporting?
Well, the assets, there's several ways you can look at assets, but realisable assets at this moment, at that point in time, we were around about £500 million. But if you look at the total assets of the council, which include all the land and everything else that it's got, and I would say that the value of the assets within the council is around about 1.2, 1.4 billion. But I would suggest that if you were a commercial operation, you'd be valuing those assets considerably more. We are very prudent in the way we value our assets.
So the gearing, even on the lowest calculation, is 6 to 1, which is very prudent.
Which is excellent. I mean, and of course, the other thing that's been very important during this pandemic is that we do have investments that actually generate income, and that income goes to pay off not just the interest on the investments that we're earning income from, it goes off to pay the other money that the council borrows. As I say, the sort of money that we borrow for forward funding infrastructure, that is also paid off by those amounts. So the net benefit to the taxpayer is at that point was £7.20 per bandy person.
So we built all the Wokingham town centre, the four major roads, and it's cost the Band-D taxpayer £7.20 a year.
In essence, no, it hasn't cost him £7. That is a benefit, basically. So after we've paid for those things, so if you like, there's a free town centre there, okay, and as time goes on, that will start to generate income. So that number will even go up significantly.
Thank you very much, Pauline.
You've partly answered the question. I was looking at page 114 and
yes.
just trying to get through the so after all the borrowing and paying for the borrowing and paying the interest, we've actually made a profit on it when you take into account the revenue that we get from the things that we've done directly with the borrowing of £7.20 a year per house.
Per house, but yes, it's an annual net benefit of £519,000, and that isn't just borrowings for our investments. That's all of our borrowings, basically.
So in layman's terms, if you're talking about commercial stuff, you're actually making a profit on that borrowing and using it to plough back, pay for funds, pay for other things like services.
Yeah, so if you like, we're paying all the interest back, plus we're having £500,000. We're delivering affordable homes for our housing companies as well, regenerating the town centre, and we are still in a position where we are getting a net benefit of £519,000 a year as of September.
Well, so I think that needs to be that certainly needs to be clarified in the press, because the impression that's given in the press about the funding is that we've got a lot of debt, which obviously isn't correct in proportion to our assets, and not only that, it's costing us a lot. Well, actually, it's not. It's making some money for the taxpayer.
Yeah, because we've invested that money in affordable homes, which generate income. We've invested it in the town centre, which unfortunately, while we were hoping we would have earned even more from it, because but the COVID slowed that down somewhat. That's why we've got a zero there. But it is a zero. It's not a cost. So if you look at it that way, you're getting a free town centre.
Thank you.
That's very creditable. And a Conservative council. Well done, John. Could you come to the recommendations then?
Yes, just bear with me. Okay, the recommendations are basically to note Appendix A, the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report, which was agreed at Audit Committee on the 23rd of November. Note all the approved indicators set out in the Treasury Management Strategy has been adhered to, and that a prudent and safe management has been maintained. And note the table below, which shows the net benefit per council taxpayer from the income generated less the financing costs on all the borrowing to date equate to £7.20, which is 0.47 of the average Band D council tax charge. The credit provides income to the council to invest in its priority services, and basically to note this report, and I recommend it to the council.
I'll second that. Those in favour? Thank you. It's carried unanimously. May I say, John, that it's a real credit to you and the finance team and the council. And well done.
Thank you very much.
Well done, John.
Thank you.
Ulrich, Healthy Child Programme.
Yeah, thank you. The Healthy Child Programme, there is a statutory duty to have a Healthy Child Programme. It involves health visiting of children between 0 and 5 years of age. Sorry. It also involves things like antenatal and postnatal support. So it's a very important thing. And in addition to this, it's school nursing. And what do school nurses do? Well, they support children with mental health problems. They help to reduce obesity and things. So we have a Healthy Child Programme because it's statutory, obviously, but it expires in March 2022. And we are then looking to start a new contract on the 1st of April 2022. There are, as you can see, there are two options in your papers, and I like to recommend option 1, where procurement is done with West Berkshire, because it gives us a combined purchase power and it will attract a larger provider. What does this mean for Wokingham then? Well, it means that Wokingham will still have its own service agreement and still set its own KPIs. But the contract will run for 3 years, and after 3 years, there will be an opportunity to either cancel the contract or carry on for another year. I think this is a very thing. I think the agreement is a good one, and I refer you to the recommendation on page 149, where we have the procurement of the Healthy Child Programme in collaboration with West Berkshire and Reading local authorities, which I'm asking you to agree to. And the second thing I'm asking you to agree to is that we get authority to proceed with necessary governance and process decisions to enable the contract to be delegated to the Director of Children's Services, Executive, the Head of Public Health, in consultation with me as the lead member for Children's Services. So I recommend that we go ahead with option 1, please.
It's actually option 1 and option 2 then.
So, I beg your pardon?
The recommendations as you read them.
Yeah.
I'll second that. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Gregor, I apologise. I should have come to item 71 first. The Woking Community Energy Fund.
Thank you, John. So the purpose of this report is to seek approval to work with an organisation called Energy for All to establish the Woking Community Energy Fund. It's important to say right up front that this is not the council setting up an energy company like the Robin Hood Energy or Portsmouth Victory Energy that people may have read about in the newspaper recently, losing lots of money for the council. This is not a new concept. Community energy funds have been around for a long time. The partner that we're looking to work with has been doing this since 2002, does it for 28 different councils and numerous other organisations, including Sheffield, the City of London, Lincoln, Bristol, Islington, Oxford and Tees Valley. The purpose of a community energy fund is to set up and provide funding for buildings and structures, charities and other organisations who wouldn't ordinarily be able to get funding to install alternative energy generating methods onto their buildings. So we're talking about charity offices, we're talking about community centres and local charity organisations, scout huts and libraries, charity offices, community centres, churches and smaller business parks, potentially even schools. These are organisations that are typically overlooked by the big commercial energy providers and also wouldn't necessarily fall within the remit or the expectations of the Borough Council's return on investment criteria. The aim of our scheme is to reduce carbon emissions and also to find funding and finance for these renewable energy projects. The scheme comes with one major advantage for Woking Borough Council. It doesn't require us to put up any significant investment in order to be able to establish this fund. Yes, there will be some officer time involved in it and some time of my own, but there is no expectation on us to fund things like marketing, the ongoing administration of this programme. It is all done itself by Energy for All, who are controlled and overseen by and governed by the Financial Conduct Authority. Woking Borough Council does have the opportunity to become an investor in the Community Energy Fund, and both Graham and Evers and I want to do that, but our investment into the Community Energy Fund will not be agreed until the board has been established and the levels of funding required and the properties put forward have been identified as well, the initial ones anyway. Typically, the schemes that are funded cost between £500 and £5,000. They'll be primarily focused around solar PV, but that doesn't mean that we won't look to fund larger projects and other alternative energy sources going forward. Energy for All already work on wind, biomass, hydropower initiatives around the country, and so we've got an opportunity to do that at some point in the future as well. Investors buy shares at a fixed value, so roughly about £1 each. These do not increase or decrease over time, but they will be paid, hopefully, a dividend at the end of each year based on the success of the initiatives that are put in place. Typically, the ones already run by Reading Community Energy pays out between 4 and 4.5% annually. So I recommend this paper to my council colleagues. The recommendation is that Woking Borough Council partner to form the Woking Community Energy Scheme, and I will gladly take any questions that anybody might have.
So how does it work for sorry, Pauline.
Thank you, John. It's quite a simple question, actually, Gregor.
Pauline, it's a really great question, and from the council's perspective, we can invest into it. The catch is that once the money is put in, you need permission from the Community Energy Fund if you need to take that money back out again at any point in the future. And essentially, the Community Energy Fund would need to raise that finance in order to be able to give it back. So these are typically long-term investments. It's not something that you can put money into and get an immediate get your money back in 5 years' time if you need it. Without special permission from the board. It's a long-term tie-in investment, but typically because it's a lower value investment, the investments start from typically about £100 each up to between £20,000 and £50,000. But most of the investment that goes into it is in small amounts, so it's typically not money that people will be wanting to get back or get ready access to. There is a function there to be able to do it, but only with the permission of the board.
Thank you, Gregor. That's very helpful.
Any other questions? So the recommendation is that Woking Borough partner with Woking Community Energy Scheme. Is that a recommendation which is agreed? Those favour? So that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gregor. Then moving to me. This is a scoping paper, really, to outline our approach to poverty. We've now got various officers working on it, and a set of governance around it, and we're proposing to do 5 blocks of work as detailed in the paper, and report back to council and the executive as we go through the steps. So I'd like to recommend the paper and the approach to the executive. Any questions? Could I have a vote on it, or could I have a seconder and a vote on it?
Second.
Thank you, Charlotte. So that's carried. Item 74, Parry.
Thank you, John. This is an annual application by the Festival Trust, which is the Henley Festival Trust, for the closure of the remnant footpath number 4. It's been going on for about 3 or 4 years now, and it's basically a safety measure so that a stage can be built very safely, and we don't want to hurt anybody in the process. So the temporary closure of the remnant footpath facilitates that building of that stage and de-rigging it when it's finished. So, and now a decision is required whether to approve the making of the closure if the event is to proceed this year. That's primarily it, really, ladies and gentlemen, and it's an annual application, and we need to approve it.
Those in favour? I think I need to abstain from this. So it's carried. With
Do you need a second, John?
Abstention by me. So the Harry, domestic abuse services.
Thank you, John. That's all on the domestic abuse services, statutory services that we need to provide. Domestic violence can happen against anybody, and anybody can be an abuser. And the council is responsible for commissioning domestic abuse support for individuals who are identified as being at high or medium risk of harm. The current contract which we've got in place, it runs out at the end of June, and we need to make arrangements now to renew that contract, not necessarily with the same provider, but the current provider may wish to tender their services. And the services to be commissioned are a helpline, access to specialist independent domestic abuse advocates, outreach, children and young people support, group-based programs, and of course, refuge support itself. Just to reiterate, the demand on our services at Woking Borough Council for domestic abuse support has increased substantially since 2018, meaning that additional short-term funding of £35,000 for an additional independent domestic abuse advocate has had to be provided to ensure service quality and safe caseloads within the Commission service. Additionally, I'll be asking for funding of another £150,000 in the year 21-22, increasing by a further £35,000 in 22-23 for domestic abuse, and that's been requested as part of the medium-term financial plan. This is based on the increased demand for services and additional statutory duties which are expected to be in place on us, and there is a new domestic abuse bill which is going through the Parliament at the moment, which should be enacted by April 21, and we've got to meet the requirements of that. So all in all, it's a statutory service we must provide, and the demand has gone up and the costs have gone up, so this additional budget is required. And there are a number of recommendations there on page 181, and I can read them out now. And I'm asking the executive to agree to the procurement of a new domestic abuse support contract of an initial period of 5 years, with an option to add a further 2 years to a contract period, with a total contract of just over £1.5 million. Secondly, to delegate authority to the Director of Community Insight and Change, in consultation with myself, authority to award the contracts to successful bidders following completion of the evaluation process. And please note that following the review of the local demand levels and service performance, additional growth has been requested, as I've already explained, through the Council's medium-term financial plan. And those are the recommendations.
Wayne? Wayne?
No, sorry, John, my hand was still left up. Sorry.
Charlotte?
Thanks very much, Chairman. I just wanted to start by saying that in the year from 2018 to 2019 March, 2.4 million people between the ages of just 16 to 74 were victims of domestic abuse, and 2/3 of those were female. These numbers are increasing, as you have said, Councillor Bath, this evening. Many of the reasons why this is happening is due to COVID and the fact that we are in lockdown for the second time. These figures that I quoted don't include children, and they don't include the elderly either, and they're not immune to domestic abuse and violence. Many people still think of domestic abuse and it's limited to physical violence, but the new bill finally recognises emotional and coercive or controlling and economic abuse. And this is, I think, very overdue that this bill was finally taken through Parliament last year. If any of you have been unfortunate enough to go through this, or know family and friends that have, you'll know only too well the truly devastating and tragic effects that domestic abuse can have. Just one perpetrator can leave a trail of absolute destruction lasting a lifetime, like a tornado smashing through a city. Something that I've sadly witnessed firsthand within my own family and also with one of my closest friends. This is why tonight I'm especially pleased that this council is getting behind fighting domestic violence and coercive abuse, raising awareness of it and investing more in the services to support victims and survivors, and also help our perpetrators to change their behaviours. I'd also like to thank the council for providing members with a training session on domestic abuse in the coming weeks too, and I think that this is long overdue also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Anybody else wants to ask any questions? John? JK?
Yeah, Barry, thank you very much. I mean, like Charlotte, I welcome this, and we are seeing so many demands coming from left field and domestic abuse, and as Charlotte's rightly saying, it is not just husband on wife or wife on husband. It affects children. We see children being taken into care, and that's one of the reasons that we decided that we'd add the £1.2 million as a supplementary to our budget this year. Thank you. That's all I really want to say.
I would like to support that, Barry, and I'd welcome this and commend you for bringing it forward. As John said, we do have particularly abnormal demand through COVID, and we need to emphasise what we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm happy to second that. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Right, the last item on the agenda for tonight. It's Gorse Ride. Now, I have to say that if you
sorry, John, you've forgotten the new resource base.
I've forgotten the new resource base.
Number 76, John.
Oh, have I? Look, 76. I'm sorry, you're absolutely right, Ilakrin.
Okay, so I like to propose a new resource space for secondary aged children, years 7 to 11, with autistic spectrum disorder and social, emotional and mental health. To have such a resource space means that the children can stay in mainstream school and only use the resource space when needed. The reason I'm taking it to you tonight is because the executive has to approve anything when it's over £500,000, and the cumulative costs over 5 years will be above £500,000. This resource base is in essence a replacement for the previous resource base we had at St. Crispin's. The service level agreement with St. Crispin's were terminated in April 2019 due to costs. The children who are presently there will continue to stay there until their compulsory education is finished. The new resource base, which I'm proposing, will be hosted by another secondary school. And what will happen is that they will take 5 children in year 7 every year from September 2021 until there are 25 children in years 7 to 11 by 2025. So if I can direct you to page 99, the recommendation is that the executive approve the proposal to commission a new secondary resource base in Wokingham, including revenue and capital costs. Thank you.
Any questions? No. I'd like to second that, Ilakrin.
Thank you.
Those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. And I apologise for missing it out.
That's all right.
A lot of paper tonight. Right, the last item on the agenda, I believe it is. Have I missed anything else out? No, I don't think so. Is Gorse Ride, and I have to say that there's a little bit of part 2 in this. Sorry, Charles and Wayne, your hands are up. Is there any reason for that? No? Okay. There is a bit of part 2 in these papers, which is 235 pages 235 and onwards. If we're not going to discuss those, then I don't have to exclude the public. But if we are going to discuss those, then I do have to exclude the public. Does anybody wish to discuss the pink papers, the part 2 papers? No, and then so, John.
Thank you, Leader. This is the most ambitious housing project that the council's ever embarked upon. It's a site to improve the existing Gorse Rise estate through the demolition of the existing poor quality housing stock and replace it with well-designed housing. The existing stock detracts from the overall appearance and character of the local area and the poor quality in appearance and layout. It's not economically viable to repair or retrofit the existing stock. More importantly, it is not fit for purpose going forward. And of course, the important thing isn't so much what these homes look like, it's what they provide for residents. The new homes which will be built will be of high quality. They're a good design and will be constructed to the latest current standards. In addition, the scheme will deliver wider benefits. We are actually knocking down 178 of the very poor quality. They were built as temporary accommodation, not in the same sense that they're not prefabricated in the old sense, but they were pre-stressed concrete, and of course they were only designed for life of 50 years, and they're substantially over that at the moment. But we are replacing them with 249 well-designed, hoping to bring vitality to the area. It will be the scheme will be integrated within the existing landscape, will enhance rather than detract from the amenities. In particular, scheme will deliver significantly public realm, which is landscaping improvement, new trees. 200 new trees are being planted on the site. A new centre village green will be created, which will be the heart of the community. It's really important to understand that we have been in constant dialogue and consultation with not just the Tenants Association, but the parish council, the local members, and more importantly, the residents who live on this estate. In fact, we've made a number of commitments to them. If we move them out and they want to come back to Gorse Ride when we built the new houses, we have given them that opportunity. So nobody is being forced out of these homes. They will be allowed to come back to brand new homes. As I say, 184% of the new homes of the 249 will be affordable. Okay, if I just move to the recommendation, though, which I think is quite important. As John says, there are some pink papers here, and if anybody wants me to answer any questions on those, I'm quite happy to do that outside this meeting, so you can contact me. The regeneration, basically, I mean, say we approved it back in January 2019, and as I say, it is the most ambitious programme. Now, like all large development sites, we need to be sure that we can gather the land, we can gather the homes that we need to demolish, and to do that we will have to institute a CPO. Okay, it's basically the CPO it will be a very, very last we won't use CPO except in very extreme circumstances where we've exhausted all other means of negotiation. I would say at this moment in time, negotiations are going extremely well, and we're being as generous as we possibly can, bearing in mind we're using public funds. But again, I would just make the point, we have made it clear to anybody who we are moving to other accommodation, and in a lot of cases they're being moved to new accommodation on some of our SDLs, but if anybody ever wants to come back, that offer will be available to them. Okay, so the recommendation is that we agree that we should make compulsory purchase order to acquire the land as shown indicatively edged red and shaded pink on the draft plan of Appendix 1 of this report. It's required to deliver the proposed regeneration of the land known, or the estate known as Gorse Ride South, Finch Hampstead. And this is in pursuant of section 2261A of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 as amended, the 1990 Act, because it considers that the acquisition of the land will facilitate the carrying out of the development, redevelopment or improvement of the site. B, the development and redevelopment or improvement is likely to contribute to the achievement of any one or more promotions or improvements of the economic, social, environmental well-being of the borough and Wokingham. And 3, there is a compelling case in the public interest for CPO. If there's any questions, I'm quite happy to answer them. As I say, I can't answer questions on page 35, 235 onwards, but I'm afraid I would much rather answer those individually to members if they wish to speak to me about it. But questions on any other? Yes.
Chairman, I have to declare an interest. I can't vote on this because I am the chairman of Lord and Homes.
Fair enough. Pauline.
Thank I just wanted to say that I'm very much in favour of this. It started a long time ago when I looked after, well, it started before me actually, but it started in my consciousness when I looked after housing. The houses in Gorse Ride are well past their sell-by date. There is a nice community there, but the houses are not helping people live in a sustainable way and helping them with fuel poverty in particular. I'm really very much in favour of developing this land and providing really nice houses for people. I think you've done an excellent job, John, in facilitating agreement between us and the various residents in Gorse Ride. There's been a lot of consultation, and I also came on the planning committee site visit to see the site recently. It desperately needs regenerating. I hope we can continue to keep that community together, and I'd just like to very much support what you're doing.
Thank you, Pauline. It shows not only are we a prudent council, but we're an ambitious council, especially when it comes to living accommodation for the poorest in the borough.
John, it is at the heart of this administration and previous administration has been to look after those areas where we have deprivation. Gorse Ride is one of the principal areas of deprivation, and I would guess, I can't remember what the total capital sum involved is. It's 140 million, isn't it?
It's not quite as much as that, John, but it's, as I say, I think it's laid out in the pink papers, but it is a very ambitious project.
And it is one of our most ambitious non-supported borrowing projects. So I would guess the rump of the residual borrowings that we have are in order to support this programme, would you say?
Yes, if you look at my earlier report, you will see an element of that is for allocating housing.
So it has my complete support in that it is the heart of the poverty programme and the homelessness programme, which we all consider very close to our hearts. And I support it, and I'm happy to second it. Those in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. And that concludes the business of the evening, unless any of the executive members would like to raise anything else. No? Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for everybody attending, and good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.